From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up! WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up War Chant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? It's showtime. It's Wake Up War Chant. As you just heard, brought to you by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan. I'm here in Tallahassee. Corey Clark, fresh off a fantastic weekend in Athens, Georgia, joins us from his second abode in suburban Georgia. You guys got Zaxby's around there, don't you, Corey?
Not only do we have Zaxby's, Aslan, but this is actually the truth. On Sunday, before I drove up to Athens to watch the apparently the 98 Yankees reincarnated,
Right.
I went to Zaxby's. And hey,
nice.
all I'm going to say is it's nice on a Sunday to be able to go get something like that.
Some fried chicken on a Sunday?
Yeah, in that. Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have fried chicken. I had a Zaxby's salad. Salad. I'm gonna pronounce it with the hard Z.
Okay.
Salad.
Right.
A Cobb salad with grilled chicken.
Nice. Right on.
Tasty as ever. That's usually my go-to at Zaxby's. I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I'm not going to say it's a coincidence that Wake Up War Chant gets the sponsor it's so long deserved, and then the Florida State baseball team does what it did this weekend. I think it's all coming together. I think there's some synergy there, and I think we're all going to be on this ride for a long time.
Right. And folks, especially in the Tallahassee area, the guy behind the Zaxby's brand around here that's now sponsoring the show, huge, big-time Seminole fan. So get yourself some food at Zaxby's. You'll also be helping out a big-time Florida State fan who's also a booster as well. But anywho, dude, what happened, like in the most positive way I can ask that question, Corey, what happened to Florida State baseball over the course of 72 hours in Athens, Georgia, that propelled them to this point now this season? I'm watching this right now live. It'll be over here probably next few seconds. LSU's probably going to take down Southern Miss. Florida State will advance, obviously, having taken down Georgia in Athens. They'll play in Baton Rouge in a super regional. Did not think I'd be saying that Florida State would be going to a super regional. I sold all my stock, Corey. I'm broke now. There's probably no room left on the wagon. I'm now going to have to be a fan later.
Yeah, man, I don't know what happened. It's hard to say. You know, I talked to Mike Martin Jr. After the game on Sunday night on the field. He was excited about the Zaxby sponsorship too.
Right on. Thanks, me.
First thing I said was, hey, man, congratulations, but listen to this. So we are really fired up, folks. We really are. And they were good. We met with them for like an hour. They were really nice people. Yeah, he is a huge Florida State fan. Big time stuff there, big booster. So I talked to him after the game meet, and he said, look, a lot of it is just confidence. And he goes, he mentioned Tim Bekker first.
Who?
Now yeah, right. We all know that Tim Bekker is not the best hitter on the Florida State team. Not even sure he was the best hitter on the Florida State club team the last 3 years. And he's not the most important player. But what he did for them this weekend was more important than I think maybe anybody all season. When he hit the 2 home runs on Friday, I think it just permeates a dugout. Like, man, Tim Bekker is hitting bombs. Let's go.
You're right.
Like, he showed up. And I think that matters. I think when you have a guy like that, they're all so excited for that kid. And he really played well. Even on Sunday, he didn't have a hit, but he got on base twice and scored a run.
Well, they're scared of him. They were scared of him, Corey.
They won't pitch to him. I get it. Like walking that kid with the bases loaded for Oregon State. So when Tim Bekker gets going like that and hits a bomb to put you up, he hit the bomb off the kid that was staring in the dugout for Georgia on Saturday, who's a really good pitcher who wasn't good that day. I just think, man, it does. It's contagious. I think they all started feeling good about themselves because Tim Becker's doing it. And obviously, I'm not saying that they wouldn't have won if Tim Bekker hadn't have done what he did. But, man, that just sparked everything. And baseball is such a goofy sport that you see one guy start having the tournament of his life or the weekend of his life, and all of a sudden Salvatore can't make an out. Albert's hitting him over the fence. Mendoza's doing what Mendoza does. DeSadas, Carter Smith. It goes on and on, man. It was just a real
1 through 9.
You're getting Do what?
1 through 9 was producing. It was amazing. They're just
Crazy. And it's not just that you're getting the production from the bottom of your order, which is huge because you flip the lineup around and those guys are hitting with runners on base. But again, it's who's doing it. Guys that haven't been counted on to do much all year. And they just provided a spark. In the Tim Bekker thing, I don't expect it to last in Baton Rouge. I hope it does. But no matter what happens in Baton Rouge, that was a magical weekend for that kid, and I think they rode it. I do think there's something to that. They just rode that kid's magic and kind of, it was contagious and kind of rode that momentum, weirdly. But that's who the first person 11 or Mike Martin Jr. mentioned was Tim Bekker. You get Tim Bekker going, and then Carter Smith gets going, and all of a sudden there's some confidence, and they start feeling good about things, and now they think they can beat anybody in the country.
And LSU's beatable. I mean, it's official now. They just wrapped it up. They just took down Southern Miss 6-4. I mean, LSU, I think, has followed a similar trajectory of what Florida State had this past season in terms of ups and downs. So, I mean, it's going to be a daunting task to go into Alex Box Stadium and beat LSU. They still have a flame arm throw and Fontenot coming out the bullpen, and, Antoine Duplantis is now their program leader in hits, but it's definitely a winnable task, which is just bizarre to be even talking about Florida State again, playing at this point in the season and having a legitimate chance to make it to Omaha. It was funny because we joked around early in the season, like before the season started, like we were starting looking through the media guide of who's coming and who's returning, who's left, and we joked kind of about Tim Bekker. We're like, won't Tim Bekker be the guy that's going to hit the home run to put Florida State in Omaha, or maybe, win a game in Omaha? How awesome would that be? But he, to your point, pretty much put the team on his back in Athens, the number 4 national seed. I wish you were watching on TV too, Core, because Scott Strickland, the head coach for Georgia, was just absolutely just devastated, just stunned the entire weekend, just watching how everything unfolded. And shout out to the animals and the fans in the greater Atlanta area of Florida State for that. It sounded like a home crowd. And that stuff I think really does matter for a team that's this sort of up and down. To have that comfort on the road, I think was a big deal. But it was just amazing just because the way the game played out on Saturday night, where I even tweeted it out. That moment when they turned that double play in the second inning where, Reese Albert, bless his heart, is running around second base like he's going to score when that guy makes that crazy catch at center field. The way Georgia comes out the dugout, it was like what Georgia did with Mark Richt the year they finally beat Florida when they scored that touchdown. It's like, everybody's running to the end zone. We're going to get a penalty. We don't care. For them to come out and sort of punch Florida State in the mouth with that, but then for Florida State to respond that way, like they were being bullied, in another person's house, to come back and fight back and win the game the way they did was awesome. And then on Sunday, basically it was just get out of Georgia's way. Georgia just kicked themselves in the foot, shot themselves in the foot the entire game. And say what you will, there's something to be said about just like, okay, all right, we'll take advantage of everything you're going to give us. You can't pick up the ball, you can't field it cleanly. Your starting pitcher can't find the strike zone, and when he does, we're going to rock him. We're going to be aggressive. Just the fact that Georgia felt the pressure, like Florida State applied the pressure to them, which is crazy, and that Florida State was able to take advantage of it at every turn of the game Sunday. Incredible. And again, there's no reason to think that Florida State can't somehow maintain this momentum for at least another weekend, where they're going to have Drew Parrish starting and CJ Van Eyck, who's just, part of me, the skeptic in me is just that he's gone too long without having a bad outing, but he's peaking at the right time. I mean, CJ's an absolute stud. He's an ace, and he's your number 2 guy right now. So let's go to Baton Rouge. Let's go to Red Stick and see what happens.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I've never been there. I've been to Baton Rouge, but it was for a football game 27 years ago. Excuse me, it wasn't for. I've never been to the baseball stadium, and I'm really excited for that atmosphere and what it's like.
That's great.
But yeah, man, still, Florida State's the underdog going in for a reason. They still have, there's still some issues with this team. They didn't all disappear.
How about the defense?
They disappeared for a weekend.
How about the defense, Corey? Like, they're turning double. I'm like, they get a runner on us. Go, like, here we go. Buckle up. And it's like, oh, that's okay. Drew Mendoza's a vacuum cleaner now, and just Salvatore's scooping everything up clean. Just to see the defense make that sort of turn, it's amazing.
Yeah, no, everything about it. Parrish wasn't great on Saturday or on Friday.
It's good enough.
The only negative you would say about the whole weekend was he wasn't great, but that ball, I was there. It was a Friday at noon. It was hot. It was humid. Whatever, and the ball was just jumping out of that park. He pitched pretty well. I don't. It was a weird. It was like you have to judge that game on as like a Coors Field game,
right?
Where he gave up 5 or 6 runs or whatever it was. But man, a couple of those they're not home runs anywhere else.
Yeah,
the ball just was carrying.
Well, Corey, you didn't see because you're obviously there, but the home runs hit at the Athens regional were absurd. I mean, it was close to 30, and I think the next closest was in the mid-teens. So yeah, it was pretty much playing at Coors Field the entire weekend. I mean, the ball was just flying everywhere.
The defense was really good. I think they got charged for 3 errors on Saturday. They gave Salvatore one that was crazy. I mean, it was a base hit. It was nuts that they gave him an error. It would have been an incredible play by him. But otherwise, Salvatore was the best player in the tournament. I mean, that guy was awesome. He made every play in the field that he had to make, and he had 9 hits, got on base 12 times. He was the MVP of the regional, leadoff hitter, and he sets the tone the very first, I think second pitch of the game on Sunday night, ripping a ball to left field. It's just I think with adding Smith and adding Becker, and look, man, I think Cabell has a chance to be a nice player. He's got to figure a lot of things out with his swing, but he was a dead out.
Yeah.
Baldor and Swanson platooning at first base were dead outs. Now you have 2 guys, and again, I don't know how long it'll last with Tim Bekker. Cabell might be right back in there this weekend if LSU throws a lefty or if Becker has a bad first game. I don't know. But Carter Smith and Becker, now you feel better about things. And you don't have dead outs in the middle of your line. You don't have dead outs in your lineup. And, just 1 through 9, you all of a sudden are starting to feel pretty, like you said, starting to feel pretty good about things 1 through 9. But the pitching and the defense, there's no way I expected Florida State to score 22 runs. That, to me, is the most surprising thing, that happened against Georgia. But it doesn't eclipse by much the fact that they only gave up 4.
Right.
In 2 of them were on the home runs by their leadoff hitter. Ooh, man, that one he hit on Sunday night. Oh. Good grief.
That cleared 2 fences.
11 in the post-game press conference was asked what he said when he went out there because he went and talked to Connor Grady. By the way, I want to mention his name. Connor Grady was terrific. It wasn't quite Will Zerzow from a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was gutty.
And it was a spot he's never really been in. And nobody was expecting much. And it was. I know there aren't a ton of people in that stadium. It's like 3,000 people, but they're loud and they're in the game and they're on top of you. And so's that dugout. And he answered the bell, man. He did really well. But 11 said he went out after the Maxwell kid hit the home run that is still in the air. I mean, that thing was touched. He went out and he joked that he asked everybody in the infield what the over-under was on how far it went. And he said Salvatore took the over. I mean, it had to go 440 feet. I mean, the guy just crushed it. Yeah. But after that, Grady, that's the time when you're like, okay, man, if anything is going to happen, this is it. This is when you might start to freak out a little bit.
Definitely.
Maybe issue a walk, a couple hits. No, man, he was, his defense helped, but he kept throwing strikes for the most part and seemed completely comfortable and into the game the whole time. Moving forward, that makes you feel pretty good if you get to a Game 3 in Baton Rouge, that kid has been in that environment on that stage and done that. But, yeah, man, we didn't see this at all year. And I made fun of myself in the column I wrote after the game on Sunday night about how wrong I was about this team. But I don't really blame myself.
No.
It was early May. It was 3 weeks ago. They lost to Jacksonville 3-2 and then got no hit by Stetson in back-to-back games. Nobody saw this coming. And we can sit back now in hindsight and said you should have believed and all that. And I get it. I've said that more than anyone about this program because they're always good. But I didn't believe at all. I thought they might luck into the postseason, and that would be the extent of their ceiling. And now here we are in the Super Regionals where you could say they're one of the hotter teams in the country. They've won 4 games, and I think they've dominated those 4 games. I mean, 45 hits and 35 runs in 3 games. That's Buster Posey like his last year. That just I still don't quite. I can't wrap my mind around what happened. It was not so completely unexpected, and Florida State is never really in that position. the baseball program where you go into a regional thinking they don't really have much of a shot. They might be overmatched. And then they go out and beat a team, a national seed. They outscored them 22-4 in 2 games. Nuts. They're going all the way, Aslan.
I'm ready. I'm telling you, I was telling Ira when we were driving down to Ocala to hang out with Willie and Cam Akers, we'll talk about that coming up here shortly on Wake Up War Chant, brought to you by Zaxby's, that I'm like, I'll sit out Baton Rouge because if they get this thing to Omaha, I want to be there the entire flipping way. I'm not just showing up for the championship series, Corey. I want to be there for opening ceremonies. I want to be there for the whole dog and pony show. I mean, back to your point, though, the 6th inning, once he gets that home run hit off of him, I got a little bit anxious just because it was like a gutty performance by Grady because, I mean, he was getting outs, but they were going deep into counts, and the runners were reaching base, and it felt like it was always kind of teetering on this could go badly maybe at any point. Not dire, but like horror show or anything, but just you can only expect so much from a kid who's never been put in that spot before. But after they hit that solo home run, pretty sure the very next at-bat was a ground ball down the right side that was iffy between him and Carter Smith in terms of who was going to cover first. Could Carter do it unassisted?
Right.
And especially with the way they had struggled defensively all season long, you're just like, oh gosh, here we go. But he got to the bag, Grady, in time to cover first, and then Carter Smith was able to flip it to him and get the out, which I thought was a really big deal at that point. But yeah, I mean, from that point on, they did not falter when we figured they probably would at some point in that regional. Shout out to Meat and Mike, Mike Jr. obviously getting them. They were just everything. They couldn't do anything wrong at the plate. Defense was sharp. Starting pitching was great. Shout out to Antonio Velez coming in even on Friday. I think that was against FSU. Yeah, I mean, I joked in our group text with you and I. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go, Antonio Velez time apparently, and Velez comes in there and just shuts him down. I think his the first batter he faced was like a three pitch strikeout, something bizarre like that. So yeah, again, if Grady can do well like that, if you win game 1. And for some reason C.J. Van Eyck struggles, at least maybe you can go all in and put Grady in a spot like that and try to get out of Baton Rouge in just 2 games. But I don't know, man. I'm not the optimistic hopeful guy, but I'm feeling it now, Corey. I'm starting to believe. I'm going to believe. I don't have any of my stock left, but I'm going to believe.
And I think it's now no matter what happens the rest of the way now, Mike Martin's career is either going to end in Omaha or in Baton Rouge. Now, we know where he wants it to end. But either way, it's going to even if it doesn't get to Omaha, okay, it ends in a super regional in, I guess, the biggest stadium in the country. It'll be
second, I think. I think Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's biggest now.
Doesn't that seem like maybe more of a fitting – I know he'd love to be at home, but doesn't that seem like a fitting – I just don't know if Foley Field, as much as I love Athens – that just didn't, looking back on it now, didn't seem like maybe the best place for him to. I want his exit to be on a bigger stage.
I hear you.
Yeah. And now it's guaranteed to be at least be at LSU and maybe in Omaha. I just think that's more fitting. That his last team is a team that did this, that overachieved. Look, and we can say they Florida State didn't They did. Georgia's arms. That kid that pitched Saturday night might be the number 1 pick in the draft next year. And then the kid that pitched Sunday night might be a first-round pick 2 years from now. He's a freshman, but he's going to be really good too. I thought they were just outmanned on the staff on the mound. They weren't. Van Eyck on Saturday night was nails, and then Connor Grady, just did what we all watched. One of the moments I liked, I want to get back to Tim Bekker real quick, but one of the moments that I think was a key in the whole weekend was, as you said, after they turned that double play and the Georgia dugout rushed onto the field like the dugout was on fire, like they had to get out of there.
Right.
I mean, the whole team jumped out of the dugout and ran to first base as if they had just sewn up the game. Well, number 1, Florida State had tied the game on that play because the run scored on the sac fly. The very next half inning is when Van Eyck comes out after all that momentum, and the juice was really in the stadium. I'm telling you, that place was going nuts. Van Eyck comes out and strikes out the side and then looks at the Georgia dugout, shrugs his shoulders like, what?
Hell yeah. That was awesome.
But, I mean, that's what you want, man. You want a guy like that. The Hancock kid was doing it to them. He started it. I don't know what his deal was, but he had something. I don't know if it's because he's from Cairo or they were the FSU dugout was chirping. But the first inning, he looked at him and talked to him after he struck out, I think, Robbie Martin. And then the next inning, after Carter Smith flew out to the fence, the kid made a really nice catch at the wall. Hancock looked back to the dugout and shook his head as if to say, like, man, y'all thought y'all were going to hit a home run off me? Come on now. I'm a badass.
Right.
The very next hitter he faced was Tim Bekker. And you know what? The center fielder didn't catch that one. And after that happened, the whole thing flipped. He got rattled because he had a former club team kid hit a bomb off him. He'd only given up, I think, maybe 4 or 5 all year. The kid on Sunday had only given up 2 home runs all year, and he gave up a home run to the second batter of the game. But again, going back to Becker, I don't know. I assume most people, or a lot of people listening to this, also watch the series and by now know Tim Becker's story. But it is really one of the coolest things that I can remember covering in my career as a sports writer. It's a really neat thing, man. This kid didn't try out at all his first 3 years because he had heard that he's not going to get a real look. And so there's no point. So he just played club ball because he loves baseball. His final year, he decides to try out almost on a lark, almost on a, you know what, whatever, we'll see. He said it lasted all of 25 minutes. He threw the ball a few times. He did some sprints, and he took some swings. And then Meat called him, I guess, later that week and said, you know, hey, we need you. And even then, he made the team. And I remember hearing about him before the season started and be like, well, that's kind of a cool story. But then nothing ever happened. He never really hit. He got a few at-bats, like 30 sprinkled in throughout the season, but nothing much. I suggested to Ira, hey, man, we could do a story on Tim Bekker before the NCAA regional starts. And he said, who? So that's the kind of impact that Tim Bekker had made through the course of the 2019 season. But that, you know, there's a lot of walk-ons in baseball. Stephen Cardullo was a walk-on. Sherman Johnson was a walk-on. But they're different than this. They were known before they got to Florida State. They were preferred. They were told they would have a spot on the team. They just couldn't give them any help financially. This is different. This is a kid that actually tried out and made the team. That does not happen. And then for him to do what he did in the postseason, to hit 3 home runs in a weekend and have 7 RBIs and do what he did, especially on Friday and Saturday, and that swing on, you know, he had a really big single too in that game after his home run on Saturday night. Man, that's the stuff of it won't be a 30 for 30 probably, but it could be a 15 for 15. It's a cool story, man. And that kid is going to be working at Lockheed. He's already graduated. He's a senior. He's going to be working at Lockheed Martin as soon as the baseball season is over. Just an awesome story. And, you know, this team that I know I'm talking a lot. I apologize. But we don't really know a ton about this team because it's been such a weird year and you know, they haven't really felt great about themselves. And you don't know how they really feel about each other. And I'm not going to say they're not likable. We just don't know them really all that well, Mendoza and a few others. The way they react to Tim Bekker and what he did, J.C. Flowers, I think, was warming up in the bullpen. And when he hits his second home run on Friday, Flowers sprints in from the bullpen to meet him at home plate. They all went nuts for him. Man, that it reminded me of when, like, the walk-ons at Florida State dunk in a game.
Right.
And the bench goes nuts. Except this was real. This wasn't.
This mattered. Yeah, this mattered.
Yeah. Just an awesome. I hope it'll get lost a little bit as the postseason wears on, most likely. But the Tim Bekker story is literally something we will always remember. We're always going to remember the name Tim Bekker because of what he did this weekend. Yeah,
and for the folks that talk about the whole anti-FSU ESPN bias thing, ESPN put their number one crew on this regional. Tom Hart, who's awesome, and then Kyle Peterson. And those guys did 11 and Tim Bekker justice the entire weekend. It was. I'm sure the Georgia fans probably were a little bit sick watching the game at home. Like, enough with this 11, enough talking about Bekker. But obviously, Mike Martin's career distinguished and well-deserved all the adoration he gets. And, they obviously love him. And he's poor guy. Like, on Saturday, something happened where there was a bang-bang play, and he was doing his in-inning interview, in-game interview.
Yeah, yep.
And he's on headset, and he's like, I don't know, should I? He's like pulling the headset off. Should I challenge that? I'm like, get the headset off of the guy. Let him focus on the game. But ESPN did a great job. And again, the number one crew was on the series. So if you watch that game from home or the games from home, you had the number one crew on it, and they, they're objective journalists, but they're rooting for Florida State. I mean, Tom Hart, Kyle Pearson are rooting for Florida State, and anybody that's going to watch the Super is going to root for Tim Bekker. And, man, if Mike Marr can get to Omaha, people talk about it being a niche sport or whatever you want to sort of use to diminish college baseball. But the ratings when it comes to the College World Series have been going up year over year. And if you're a Florida State fan, you're usually not the Cinderella, the darling of any sport, maybe softball last season. But the entire country, outside of losers from Gainesville, will be pulling for Mike Martin and Florida State. So we're going to Omaha, Core. We're going to Omaha. Make the reservation at the Drover.
I mean, I liked it. I was thinking about it when Southern Miss had the lead over LSU.
Oh, and then, I know.
But I was like, would Florida State have hosted if Southern Miss had won?
Most likely. They both – well, actually, I think USM was the 2 seed in that regional.
That's what I couldn't remember. But I was thinking, like –
it's open, though. It's open. Like, they put it up for bid. So, Florida State can put a bid in there,
Florida State likely probably would have. Yeah. But I think, like, for this team, for whatever reason, and I'm certainly not expecting them to go into Baton Rouge and win a series. That would be surprising to me. But – I do think it's better for this team that they're on the road in Baton Rouge.
Just keep it going. Yeah.
Again, you keep the same attitude. Nobody's expecting this, man. Y'all got nothing to lose at this point. You're in the supers when 3 weeks ago you were out of the tournament. So a month ago, your RPI was literally 3 weeks ago, you got no hit by Stetson. You got no hit by Stetson, and your RPI was in the hundreds like 5 weeks ago. And now you're in the super regionals. There's literally nothing to lose. And there aren't ever any Florida State teams that you could ever say that about. That they're thought of like this, but as an underdog, there just never are. But this Florida State team is that, and I think if they were playing at home against the Southern Miss, all of a sudden things flip, and you're like, oh man, you got a chance to go to Omaha.
Right.
You get to play at home, and you just got to play Southern Miss. That's not even a Power 5 school. Now they're at LSU, which is certainly a Power 5 school, and I just think that's better for this team because, again, you kind of go in footloose and fancy-free, carefree, nothing to lose. Just go have fun and enjoy it no matter how long the rest of the season lasts.
I agree, man. I definitely agree. I think it's all setting up quite nicely for the Noles, man. Otherwise, around the world of Florida State athletics, the spring booster tour for Willie Taggart and the football team has come to its conclusion. They had stops in Ocala on Wednesday night, I think, or Thursday, and then we're in Miami on Friday. Ira might be writing a column on this later this week, or maybe even further down the line. I don't want to put his back against the wall on anything, but there's other stuff that's going to come from these booster stops that Willie was on last week. I guess the one sort of newsy thing, James Blackman's up to 184 pounds. Get some.
Oh,
watch out.
Right.
Yeah. Can I ask, why are we so, and I'm not, and you're not either, this is like a rhetorical question or more along the lines of the fan base. What's with the obsession around his weight? Like it's not going to do anything to it's a durability.
Yeah. I think that's what people are worried about.
He got killed in 17. He got destroyed over and over in 17 and didn't miss a game. I mean, he should gain weight. There's nothing wrong with him gaining weight. I don't obsess over it. I think a lot of fans do. They're super just want to have – they just want like a calorie tracker.
And it doesn't appear to affect his arm strength.
Yeah.
The arm is plenty there. I just think it's like, is he going to be able to get up from a blindside hit? But then again, I don't know if he was 210 pounds that you'd feel any better if he's getting ripped to the ground a lot. That's just those guys. The defensive linebackers are bigger and stronger than quarterbacks. So the key, Aslan, in my opinion, is to get good guys in front of your quarterback to keep those guys from hitting them. Yeah. Then you could have a dude that's 112 pounds. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't matter. Just keep him upright. So, yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Everybody is worried about his weight, kind of like they were with Trickett, not to this extent because Trickett was never really slated to be the starter, but he could never gain weight, and he was a skinny little dude. And no, I should say skinny and little. He's 6 inches taller than me. He's a skinny dude. And Blackman's the same way, just a skinny guy. Some people are naturally skinny. Kevin Durant's naturally skinny.
Will Greer.
He's not strong.
Will Greer, the quarterback of West Virginia that lit up the world last year, he's fairly skinny. Had to take some illegal products to try to help bulk up when he was in Gainesville.
Sure.
Thanks for doing that, Will. I'm glad. Good grief. Imagine if McElwain had him.
They were good with him at quarterback.
Yeah, they were. But I thought the most interesting thing was, so as we're driving down, take you a little bit behind the curtain, Ira and I are driving down to Ocala, and it's sort of brainstorming what are we going to ask Willie and Cam? Like what sort of storylines are there to still talk about that aren't going to make everybody roll their eyes? There's more leadership and they're excited and all that. I think to a certain point, fans are like, okay, enough, just kick the ball off in Jacksonville, and I'll make that judgment, that distinction. But it quickly went from kind of trying to figure out what Ira's going to write about. I'm like, well, Ira, he's actually going to do the program at 7:30. Why don't you wait until he's done talking in front of the fans down there in Marion County and Ocala? By the way, shout out to those folks. Marion County Seminole Booster Club pulled together $25,000 to donate to the indoor practice football facility. Not the IPF, the football-only facility, rather. Yeah. The football-only facility. So they're a big-time booster base. And I didn't think – I would think Ocala, that's like Gator territory, I would have figured. But anyhow, Willie was the best I've heard him ever, period. I saw him last year in Jacksonville, in Panama City Beach. This year, saw him in Panama City Beach, in Jacksonville again, Tampa, then Ocala. I don't know if it was kind of winding things down. Maybe it's because he's got his house is now completely done being built. He's moved into his new house, which, by the way, he showed Ira and I the renderings of his pool. It's pretty sweet. Maybe a little pool party.
Is he having us over?
Hopefully. It was just Ira and I. We were hanging out with Willie. Like, we were the only media contingent there.
I feel like if Florida State gets to 10 wins, there needs to be a War Chant pool party.
Yeah. We'll put that up
Willie's house.
Yeah, that'll be my farewell party, too. I'll have lost the bet. I'll have to give up my position if they get 10 wins.
That's true.
So maybe 9 wins. Let's say 9 wins there, Willie.
All right. Yeah, there you go.
But I don't know if it was because Gene Deckerhoff wasn't the MC at this one. It was William Floyd. I don't know if it was because of that, or there was a little bit of a touching tribute in the middle of it to the late Al Dunlap, because he made his home out there in Ocala. But, dude, Willie was just the most candid, honest. There's been points where, like, if you go back, and I've said this so many times, I'm sorry to keep bringing it up, but if you watch that press conference the week of the Virginia Tech game, I think on the Sunday before that week, he actually spoke to us in the museum, like indoors, and we weren't doing the whole media scrum by the fence line at the practice fields. But he walked out of there just so cocksure, pretty much, I got this. We're going to win at least 10 games. It's all good. I'm here forever. Love y'all. See you Monday night in Doak. Love you. And then you see him approach the podium after they get destroyed 24-3, and he's just a broken man practically. Like, to see that huge swing was sobering for me. And there's been parts that season wore on him. I mean, people would even make the sort of observation, like, Willie's not smiling anymore. Willie looks a little bit defeated. And I think people even complained about the photos that we would use of Willie to put on the website when we were for a story. And it's like, hey, Gene took a photo of him. That's the way it looks. It's not doctored. It's not trying to make him look unflattering. It's just the way the photo came out. But he just seems so much more at ease. And I don't know from what, but he did mention the offensive line came up, and this one guy was just, you got Cam Akers sitting up there next to you, Coach. He's an amazing running back, but he couldn't do anything because the guys in front of him sucked. I mean, literally said the guys in front of him sucked. And, Willie's just, it wasn't him being like a diplomat or trying to be politically correct or, trying to gas up his own guys. But, Willie's just like, listen, like, they know. Like, they've heard everything that everybody has said about them for the last 8 months. And he just, again, he said the offensive line is going to be much better. Everyone's going to be impressed with the offensive line.
And you're believing them.
And you're like, I'm not complimenting him for being positive. I'm complimenting him for just the sort of the genuineness and the sincerity in what he was saying. To me, I thought it was really reassuring. It didn't strike to me. Again, people like, well, what do you expect him to say when I would complain after they get destroyed by Syracuse, listen, he said the offensive line was going to be good, and that's why I said I thought the team was going to win 10 games. But for him to have said what he said last year, experienced everything that he experienced, and to come back and say it again, Willie doesn't strike me as some guy that's going to go up there and just say stuff just to, finish the string and get a 30-minute Q&A session done. But I hope Ira can do it much more justice. There was just a feeling around that booster stop and the way that Willie talked about that team that just felt much more comforting. He went ahead and talked more about coaching chemistry. That was something that really stood out to Ira. And I was like, Ira, I told you he said that in Tampa, and you didn't, I guess he had to hear it with his own ears. But for him to talk about,
how Ira is.
Basically, I think someone asked about the offensive line and what went wrong, and he's like, well, they didn't know what they were doing, which, either, take that as you will. But and then in the context of coaching chemistry, he talks about, it's much more better when Kendall and Randy are on the same page and they know what they want from each other. So it does seem like the things that were lacking last season have definitely been, observed and been handled into a point that it seems like Willie's satisfied with the way it's coming along. And I think we've glossed over it too many times, I think, as well, that it was a spring game, but the fact that they did shake up the ones, and it wasn't ones versus twos. It was a hodgepodge, if you will, of O-line on D-line. And the fact that you could put your second-string left tackle with your third-string right guard and your starting center, and that they did look pretty solid, is again, these are comforting, reassuring signs, I think, that I walked away from it, and I think Ira did as well, feeling good about the direction where ththings are headed. Granted, it's June, but we'll see how it goes.
It is June. That would be my counter to all that. That was a lot.
Sorry, Ira. Sorry,
no, I was saying about the offensive line, because I think I don't want to fall into the trap of what we did last year, where it sounded so good, and then we see the product and go, ugh, what was that?
Yeah.
So I think everybody right now, but I see what you're saying. I think everybody right now is kind of, like I've said and will continue to say, it's wait and see or prove it to me. But when you said the thing about they didn't know what they were doing.
He literally said that too. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't think that's an indictment of Greg Fry necessarily, that he didn't know how to teach. But you had an offensive line coach working with an offensive coordinator he didn't know, and that offensive coordinator was working with a head coach he didn't know, running that head coach's offense. It was three guys that had never worked together that, sometimes that doesn't click. It just doesn't mesh. And it is a big, big deal. It happened at Florida State before Trickett and Jimbo got there. They brought in offensive line coaches that just did not mesh and, make a Jeff Bowden joke if you want, but didn't mesh with what Jeff Bowden was trying to do. And the same thing apparently happened last year. They just couldn't teach it how they needed to teach it within the context of what offense they were trying to run. Here, that they're going to know what to do because Randy Clements knows how to coach offensive linemen in this system. That, to me, is the most reassuring thing. And when he says they're going to be much, much better, we'll see. We don't need them to be much, much better. I don't necessarily buy that. We need them to be better by some degrees. But again, I think the thing that you can take solace in, if you're listening to that, is when he does say they know what they know what they're doing, because that means that it's obviously Clements and Briles working together. There is a reason they've always been good and scored a ton of points. If you can't block, you can't score points. They figured out a way, even at weird places like Baylor back in the day when they weren't the Baylor that we think of now. FAU, Houston, they find a way. Houston anyway. They find a way to make it work
on day one. Yeah, day one too. That's the real big deal.
When I say that, the offensive line, it's a lot of the same guys, and you lost technically your most talented guy to Alabama, right?
I don't know. Is it official? I don't think it's official. I'll check it out.
I thought I heard somebody say that, but
it's neither them or A&M.
I don't think it sounds like an indictment of Greg Fry that he didn't know how to teach it. We know Greg Fry can coach offensive lines. He's done it a lot. He's been hired at a lot of places and been paid a lot of money to do it. In this instance, though, he was hamstrung because he was working with an OC who wasn't really an OC, who had no history with Taggart. Taggart had no history with Fry, and they had a hard time, synergizing, making it work. Well, Briles and Clements, they speak the same language, man. They've been doing it forever. They don't have to talk to each other about what they want because it's expected. That alone should make a pretty big difference.
You're right. I missed it. I don't know why.
Come on,
happened
Aslan.
2 days ago. What was I doing? Yeah, Landon Dickerson going to Alabama. What a bum.
Did you say what a bum?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's he doing in Alabama?
What's Nick Saban doing? I mean, what does Nick Saban know?
What are the odds really that he plays for them?
Give me a number. Give me like an over-under number.
I'm going to say 40%. I mean starts.
So 40% of they'll probably
I
play
say he's got a
40%
chance of starting for them.
Oh, 40? No, I think he'll start. He's a grad transfer. He ain't going to go there just to sit and do nothing.
Man, Alabama.
Actually, I don't know what I got to look at their depth chart. I know they still have Alex Leatherwood, but he's a tackle. I don't know what their interior line situation is.
I mean, I'm going to guess that Alabama's pretty loaded at every offensive line position.
Yeah, that's what they do.
With guys that they've worked with and they're slated to start. I can't imagine a Florida State transfer. And I like Landon Dickerson, and I do think he's good. He's not durable, but I think he's good. Man, that would be something if he could go in there in 2 months, 1 month, and work his way into the starting lineup.
Matt Womack, he's a tackle. Lashley's a tackle. Evan Neal, but he's a true freshman tackle. Leatherwood, I think, is a tackle, too. I'm just looking at the roster there. Leatherwood, what he did, he moved inside to right guard. Yeah, so he's a guard. I think he'll start. If you want to say 4 games, I'll say that Landon Dickerson will start more than 4 games. Oh, that's not quite 40%. That's a little bit under 40%. Because they'll probably play 15 games. Right? I mean, they'll play 12 in the regular season, probably be in the SEC championship game, probably play a playoff game, probably go to the national title game.
Hey, man, it's cool for him, though.
Yeah,
I mean, if he can get on that line there, if he can stay healthy, man, and he's going to get that Alabama juice that they give all those big boys there.
Right.
He's going to turn into a monster and a Hulk all of a sudden and probably win the Outland.
He already is, though. I edited a video when this was starting to happen, when Ira and I did one of those video chats on YouTube. Yeah, he looked great this spring. He moved around really well in the limited time that we saw him. They kept him out of contact because they wanted to preserve him because, again, he's had problems remaining healthy. But he looked really good. He looked really good physically this spring, but we'll see. I don't know. Can I wish him well, or is that me being a traitor?
No, I wish him well. I got no ill will towards that kid. He's being coached by an entire coaching staff of people that did not recruit him. And, we want him to be loyal. That's fine. I get that. But he also watched his team go 5-7 last year. And he has a chance to go play at Alabama.
Yeah. Reunited with Charles Kelly. That must have done it. Kelly,
of course. He gets to go be back with old
Charlie.
CK. Maybe he'll go to his birthday party.
That's
a reference, folks, to what was the name of that?
Showtime. A season with.
Oh man, that was something else.
Ira and I were talking about that on the drive back from Ocala at 1:00 in the morning. That was probably one of the most colossal disappointments of my TV viewing life.
So I'll let you in on a little
step aside Game of Thrones. That wasn't disappointing. We get a behind the scenes look. Hard Knocks of Florida State, my favorite team. Let's go.
But let's give Jimbo final cut.
Right.
So we're going to see a lot of really interesting stuff.
Cheerleaders. Walk-on offensive lineman riding his scooter around campus playing pool with the backup quarter. Oh, cool. That nice.
Not only that, but
terrible. Staged. It was all staged.
Yeah. I can't remember the kid's name. He was redheaded.
Keith Weeks.
There you go. Weeks. That's right.
Yeah.
I had him on my now defunct podcast.
Tuesdays with Corey. I remember this. Sure. I'm a big fan.
So, yeah, I asked him about that scene. And because he's shooting, I think it's after the Ole Miss game. He's shooting pool with Smag, and with Sean McGuire. And, Sean McGuire wanted to be the quarterback, but he's injured. And Francois has that great game against Ole Miss. And they're talking about, he's like, so what'd you think about DeAndre on Monday night? He's like, yeah, I thought he played really well. McGuire says that.
Right.
I'm like, dude, that whole scene seemed really unnatural.
Very awkward.
I was like, were y'all really shooting pool in that little area, the whatever they call that?
Players'
hangout
lounge.
Place?
Yeah.
The lounge? Yeah. And he goes, oh, no, they asked us to do it. And then I can't remember if he said they asked him to ask questions like that, but they definitely asked him to go shoot pool and, maybe talk about the game a little bit. Yeah. And I'm like, well, come on, man. What are we doing here? It's only a 26-minute show. Just show the most interesting stuff is just the stuff on the sidelines anyway.
Right.
And show us what they do in the film. But no, it was staged. It wasn't quite the Hard Knocks experience that we were hoping for.
Yeah. The only cool part was the USF game post locker room speech. That was great. So he flipped out and threw a helmet. He's telling them how good they are. It's like, only you can beat you. Stop beating you. It was that great West Virginia wisdom.
That's the game where Jimbo had his. It was basically like a Marshawn Lynch press conference. God, it was so hot. That's one of the hotter games I've ever been to. And we were in the hallway underneath the stadium. They didn't even have a press area, even though it was a pro stadium. The Bucks played there. They had no area for a press conference. So he's just posted up on a wall in the hallway, and there's 50 people in front of him, and he's just saying like 4-word answers to everything. Didn't execute. Got to try hard. Got to get better. Didn't execute. Didn't finish. And at one point, I'm like, man, you seem really irked. He goes, yeah, didn't finish. And that was his answer to like everything, which, they didn't. They were up by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Then they just kept giving up touchdowns to old Willie Taggart's offense. Yeah. Willie Taggart's offense put 35 on them. Mm-hmm. Now, if I remember correctly, they gave up 55, but, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Maybe that's what happened this year.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook. Games. What are you going to do?
He was really good. Poor Tavares McFadden got beat like a drum on the first play. I remember that.
That was one of my – and I don't pat myself on the back much for tweets, but one of my best – one of my favorite tweets that I ever had was – so South Florida on the very first play of the game hits an 80-yard touchdown, beats McFadden.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook on Florida State's first play of the game scores on like a 77-yard run. So there have been 2 plays and 2 long touchdowns. And then my tweet was, here in the first quarter, Florida State holds a time of possession edge, 12 seconds to 10 seconds. It's pretty funny, right?
That's nice. I like that.
The way I worded it just now is completely unfunny.
But in a tweet form,
in the moment, in a tweet, I had more time to think about it. Mm-hmm. I worded it really. It was a doozy of a tweet. Pretty proud of that one.
I could have looked it up, maybe.
No, it's all right. No need. Okay. The show's been going on for too long. Anyway.
Yeah, no, right. Sorry about that, everybody. As always, look in the item description. If you're complaining, why do we talk about baseball so much? If you look in the item description, it probably tells you when we started talking about football for a little bit.
Do you think we have people like now?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We got these knuckleheads. Yeah. Yeah,
I think that's few and far between. I think if you're looking to see when we stop talking about baseball, what's your deal?
I tweeted this out. I know we got to wrap up. I want to go. We're almost about 50 minutes, which is too long for a show in June. If you call yourself a Florida State fan and you're not emotionally invested in the baseball team, I can't find the right metaphor. You're not maximizing being a fan. It's like being given a blank check and you're just like, I'll just take $500. No, man, dive into this stuff. And it's crazy because it's always heartbreak, but there's something romantic about being a Florida State baseball fan to me. Not quite lovable losers like the Cubs back in the day, but there's something about it, though. It really is. I mean, I've got friends who love the football team, obviously alums from Florida State, but like they'll text me tenfold more when these baseball games are going down. I mean, I kept texting my one, but like, let's go. Every time Florida State was hitting a home run, he's like, don't jinx it, don't jinx it, don't jinx it. It's crazy. I even more so than the biggest payoff if this all happens for Mike Martin, for me selfishly, will be ESPN will be forced to do. They really would have to be forced into doing a 30 for 30 on Mike Martin's career if he wins it all. And I think if they do it right and set it up with all the setbacks, and I don't want to call them failures, but just falling short. I mean, he's been in Omaha 16 times. This will be the 17th time if they can win 2 more games. Like, if you set it up the right way, I think it'll be literally the greatest sports documentary. Or at least it's the greatest story in terms of sports. Like, maybe the documentary might not be hard-hitting and fascinating to the degree of some ones that have won Emmys and stuff, but just like the romantic aspect of a guy just chasing this thing for 40 freaking years, and it were to finally happen, it'd be amazing.
I love our show because, especially since Zaxby's hopped on board. Last week, pre-Zaxby's,
right?
We were legitimately talking about, like, okay, his career's over. I think they're going to play loose and carefree in Athens, but they're just not good enough for it to matter.
Right.
That was the gist of our program last week. This week, you have ESPN doing a 30 for 30 on the 2019 national champion Florida State Seminoles. That's how much things have changed in 4 days, folks.
Life comes at you fast.
It really, really does.
He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up with y'all later this week.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.